When Malcolm turned 15, he moved to Boston to live with his half-sister Ella. She was strong, proud, and confident. She wore beautiful dresses and walked with her head high. Malcolm admired her. She taught him something new: never be ashamed of who you are. Boston was full of energy, jazz, lights, people, and noise. For the first time, Malcolm felt free. He saw young black men dressed in suits, shining shoes, and speaking with power. He wanted to be like them. Soon, he began to call himself Detroit Red because of his red hair. But freedom can be dangerous when you don't know where to go. Malcolm started to spend time with street hustlers, gamblers, and thieves. He learned the fast life: money, women, alcohol, and danger. He thought, this is power, this is life. He danced all night in clubs and made jokes that made people laugh. He was smart, quick, and charming. But deep inside, he was still that boy who wanted respect. He just didn't know how to find it. Soon, Malcolm started working with a group who stole from rich houses. He felt clever, like a movie hero, but he didn't see the trap closing around him. One night, the police caught him. He was only 20 years old when the judge said, 10 years in prison. 10 years. The words hit him like stones. He laughed, trying to hide the pain, but inside he screamed. In prison, life was quiet and cold. The first months were the hardest. He read nothing, learned nothing, and fought often. He was angry at the world and at himself. Then, one day, a man in prison spoke to him about the Nation of Islam. He told Malcolm, "You are not a nobody. You are somebody, a black man with history, with power." Those words changed something inside him. For the first time, he felt purpose. He began to read every book he could find. He studied history, religion, and language. He read about Africa, slavery, and freedom. He filled notebooks with new words. Books became his new friends. His voice became calm and strong again. He said to himself every night, "My mind is my weapon." Years later, he would tell people, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare it today." In prison, Malcolm Little began to disappear. A new man was born, Malcom X. The X meant the name of his lost African ancestors, a name stolen by slavery. He promised himself, "When I leave this place, I will never be the same."
Listening practice tips. Read aloud slowly. Notice the rhythm. He saw the fire dance on the walls. He asked, "Why do they hate us, Mama?" Practice emotion, sadness, anger, and hope. Chapter 2. The Streets of Boston.
When Malcolm turned 15, he moved to Boston to live with his half-sister Ella. She was strong, proud, and confident. She wore beautiful dresses and walked with her head high. Malcolm admired her. She taught him something new: never be ashamed of who you are. Boston was full of energy, jazz, lights, people, and noise. For the first time, Malcolm felt free. He saw young black men dressed in suits, shining shoes, and speaking with power. He wanted to be like them. Soon, he began to call himself Detroit Red because of his red hair. But freedom can be dangerous when you don't know where to go. Malcolm started to spend time with street hustlers, gamblers, and thieves. He learned the fast life: money, women, alcohol, and danger. He thought, This is power. This is life. He danced all night in clubs and made jokes that made people laugh. He was smart, quick, and charming. But deep inside, he was still that boy who wanted respect. He just didn't know how to find it. Soon, Malcolm started working with a group who stole from rich houses. He felt clever, like a movie hero, but he didn't see the trap closing around him. One night, the police caught him. He was only 20 years old when the judge said, 10 years in prison. 10 years. The words hit him like stones. He laughed, trying to hide the pain, but inside he screamed. In prison, life was quiet and cold. The first months were the hardest. He read nothing, learned nothing, and fought often. He was angry at the world and at himself. Then, one day, a man in prison spoke to him about the Nation of Islam. He told Malcolm, "You are not a nobody. You are somebody, a black man with history, with power." Those words changed something inside him. For the first time, he felt purpose. He began to read every book he could find. He studied history, religion, and language. He read about Africa, slavery, and freedom. He filled notebooks with new words. Books became his new friends. His voice became calm and strong again. He said to himself every night, "My mind is my weapon." Years later, he would tell people, "Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare it today." In prison, Malcolm Little began to disappear. A new man was born, Malcom X. The X meant the name of his lost African ancestors, a name stolen by slavery. He promised himself, "When I leave this place, I will never be the same."
Chapter 3: The Rise of Malcom X. The prison doors opened with a loud clang. After 6 long years, Malcom X stepped into the sunlight. He took a deep breath and whispered, "I'm free, but I'm not the same man." The world outside had changed, but Malcolm had changed even more. He no longer wanted a street life. He wanted truth, discipline, and justice. He soon met other members of the Nation of Islam, a religious movement that taught Black pride, unity, and independence. They believed that Black people should love themselves, build their own businesses, and protect their communities. Malcolm listened and learned. He spoke with passion, with fire in his eyes. When he talked, people stopped to listen. His words were sharp but full of meaning. "We have been asleep," he said. "It's time to wake up." People began to call him Minister Malcom X. He traveled to cities, Detroit, Chicago, New York, giving speeches that inspired thousands. He spoke about courage, education, and self-respect. His voice was like thunder, strong and unforgettable. Crowds grew larger and larger. Newspapers began to write about him. Some praised him, others feared him. He said things that many were afraid to say out loud. He said, "I'm not against any race. I'm against oppression. If you want freedom, you must fight for it." The young admired him, the old respected him. The government watched him. He was not afraid. He had already faced hate, prison, and poverty. Now he faced power, and he used his voice as his weapon. Still, not everyone in the Nation of Islam liked his fame. Their leader, Elijah Muhammad, was quiet and cautious. Malcolm was bold and loud. Some followers began to whisper, "Malcolm is becoming too big." But Malcolm's heart was honest. He truly believed in what he was saying. He told the people, "We must learn to respect ourselves, our women, our families. No one will give you freedom. You have to take it." That message echoed across America. Black people began to feel proud again. They walked taller, spoke louder, and looked each other in the eye. For many, Malcolm X was not just a man. He was a mirror, showing them their strength. Listening practice tips. Read aloud with strong rhythm and power. Emphasize quotes. It's time to wake up. Practice pronouncing words like oppression, freedom, unity. Try to feel confidence while reading, just like Malcolm. Chapter 4. Conflict and Discovery. Fame can be heavy. The brighter the light, the darker the shadows behind it. As Malcolm became more famous, the pressure grew. The media called him the most dangerous man in America. But he only spoke the truth. He told people what others were afraid to hear. Then, in 1963, something tragic happened. President J.F. Kennedy was killed in Dallas. When reporters asked him about it, he said the killing was a case of the chickens coming home to roost. He meant that violence in America had finally come back to those who created it. But his words shocked the nation. The leaders of the Nation of Islam punished him. They said he could not speak in public for 90 days. Malcolm was hurt. He had always respected Elijah Muhammad, but now he began to doubt him. He started to ask questions. He discovered stories about Elijah Muhammad that disappointed him deeply. For the first time, Malcolm felt alone again. He began to wonder if his path was still right. He prayed more, read more, and thought deeply about faith and truth. In 1964, he made a big decision. He left the Nation of Islam. He said, "I am still a Muslim, but I must follow the truth, not people." He wanted to see Islam for himself, not just in books, so he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca, a holy journey called the Hajj. It was the first time he left America. What he saw changed him forever. He saw Muslims from every country, black, white, brown, and yellow, praying together as brothers. They shared food, water, and peace. There was no hate, no racism, only unity. Malcolm wrote letters home amazed and emotional. "I have eaten from the same plates with people whose skin was the whitest of white, and whose eyes were the bluest of blue. And we are all the same, all brothers." When he returned to America, people were surprised. He spoke with a softer tone now, still strong, but wiser. He said, "I no longer believe in hate. I believe in truth and justice for all people." He created a new group called the Organization of Afro-American Unity, OAU. He wanted to connect the struggle of Black Americans with people all over the world who were fighting for freedom. Malcolm X was now more than a fighter. He was a thinker, a teacher, a man who had seen the world and changed his heart. Listening practice tips. Read aloud with emotion and reflection. Practice pauses after key sentences. He left the Nation of Islam. Pause, 2 seconds. Repeat important quotes with power and calmness. Feel his transformation from anger to peace to understanding.
Chapter 5. The New Vision. When Malcolm returned from Mecca, the air around him felt lighter. He smiled more often. He spoke more calmly. His eyes, once full of anger, now held peace, a peace built on understanding. Reporters rushed to talk to him. "Malcolm," one asked, "are you still against white people?" Malcolm looked up and said softly, "I am against hate, not against any race. I met brothers of all colors in Mecca. I have learned that true Islam teaches equality and respect." It was a new message, one that surprised many. Some people couldn't believe the change. They said, "Malcolm X has gone soft." But those who truly listened could hear something different: wisdom. He began traveling again, not to preach anger, but to share hope. He spoke in Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. Everywhere he went, people welcomed him as a leader, a thinker, and a voice of truth. In Ghana, he met African leaders who had fought for independence. He said, "The struggle of Black Americans is the same as yours, the struggle to be free, to be respected, to be human." His speeches were no longer just about Black versus white. They were about humanity versus injustice. He told people, "We can't fight hate with hate. We must fight hate with unity and understanding." But back home, things were not so peaceful. The United States was still full of tension. The civil rights movement was growing stronger. Leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about peace and nonviolence. Malcolm respected King, but had his own way. He said, "I don't call for violence, but I believe in self-defense. If someone puts his hand on you, send him to the cemetery." The crowd always gasped and then clapped. Malcolm's words were sharp, but his message was clear. Stand tall. Don't let anyone crush your dignity. But there were dark clouds forming. Some members of the Nation of Islam still saw him as a traitor. They sent him threats, letters, phone calls, warnings. Friends begged him to be careful. He nodded, but refused to hide. "If I am to die, I'll die doing what I believe in," he said. Even with danger around him, he kept moving, kept speaking, kept dreaming. He was no longer the angry young man from Boston. He was a man on a mission of truth. Chapter 6. The Final Speech. It was February 21st, 1965, a Sunday. Malcolm X woke up early in his home in Harlem, New York City. His wife, Betty Shabazz, was making breakfast. Their 4 daughters played in the living room, laughing and running. Malcolm smiled at them. He kissed Betty on the forehead and said quietly, "I'll be back soon. I have to speak to my people." He was going to give a speech at the Audubon Ballroom. It was a large hall filled with chairs and bright lights. More than 400 people had come to listen. Some were students, others were workers, mothers, and children. They were there to hear his truth.
Malcolm stood behind the curtain, adjusting his tie. He looked calm, but serious. He knew the threats, he knew the risks, but he also knew his mission. When he stepped on stage, the crowd cheered. He smiled slightly and began. Assalamu alaikum, my brothers and sisters. His voice filled the hall, deep, strong, and full of life. He spoke about unity, about freedom, about love that rises above hate. Then, suddenly, bang, 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 gunshots echoed through the hall. People screamed, chairs fell, children cried. Malcolm X fell to the floor. Betty ran toward him, shouting his name. But it was too late. The man who had once been a boy from Omaha, the man who had faced hate and found peace, was gone. He was only 39 years old. The news spread across the world. Many cried, many prayed, some were angry, others were silent. But all felt that something powerful had ended, and something new had begun. At his funeral, thousands of people came. They spoke of his courage, his honesty, his change. His friends said, Malcolm X died for the truth, and the truth never dies. His wife, Betty, raised their daughters with pride. She taught them to remember their father, not for his death, but for his message. Freedom, knowledge, and self-respect. Today, the world still remembers him. His speeches are studied in schools. His quotes are printed on walls and in hearts. He showed that even a man once lost can find his light again. As he once said, a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. And Malcolm X, he stood for something that still lives on.
Chapter 7: The Voice That Never Died. The day after Malcolm's death, the streets of Harlem were quiet. People walked slowly. Faces looked sad. Newspapers showed his picture, his sharp eyes, his serious look. Some headlines called him a troublemaker. Others called him a hero. But in the hearts of many, Malcolm X was more than a name. He was a symbol of courage, truth, and transformation. At schools and cafes, people whispered his words, by any means necessary. Education is the passport to the future. A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. Young men and women began to study his speeches. They repeated his words with pride. They started to see themselves as strong, intelligent, and worthy. In time, new movements grew from his message. Groups like the Black Panther Party and many community leaders took inspiration from Malcolm's ideas about self-respect and power. They said, Malcolm taught us to love ourselves first. But Malcolm's story also reached far beyond America. In Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, people spoke of him. They said, he fought not only for Black people, but for all who were oppressed. His story became a bridge between nations. His image,
The glasses, the finger pointing upward, and the passion in his eyes became a sign of awakening. In the 1970s and 80s, young activists, musicians, and artists carried his message. They painted murals of him on city walls. They sang songs about his courage. They used his words in poetry, rap, and film. Each time someone spoke his name, it was like Malcolm X breathed again through their voices. His widow, Betty Shabazz, worked hard to keep his memory alive. She finished her studies and became a respected teacher. She raised her 6 daughters with discipline and love, and each of them grew up proud of their father. One of his daughters later said, "My father showed us that change begins with self-respect." Even people who once feared him began to understand him. They realized that Malcolm X was not teaching hate. He was teaching strength, pride, and honesty. His life became a lesson. You can start in darkness and still find your light. Listening practice tips. Read aloud with deep, respectful emotion. Pause slightly after each quote to reflect. Focus on rhythm, slow and meaningful. Repeat, his voice never died. Chapter 8. The Legacy of a Man. Many years passed, but the story of Malcolm X continued to grow. New generations discovered his speeches on the internet, watched films about his life, and felt the power of his journey. In 1992, a famous movie called Malcolm X was made by director Spike Lee, starring Denzel Washington. It showed Malcolm's life, from the poor boy in Omaha to the leader who spoke before thousands. The film brought his story to millions of people around the world. In classrooms, teachers began to talk about him next to Martin Luther King Jr. They showed how both men wanted the same thing, freedom and dignity, but in different ways. Dr. King used peace and nonviolence. Malcolm used pride and truth. Two voices, two paths, both leading to justice. Today, if you walk through Harlem, you can visit the Malcolm X and Dr. Betty Shabazz Memorial Center, built inside the same Audubon ballroom where he gave his last speech. There, people read his words, see his photos, and learn about his message of change. On the wall, one quote shines brightly. "The future belongs to those who prepare it today." It reminds visitors, students, travelers, dreamers that knowledge is power, and courage begins in the mind. In 2011, Malcolm X's autobiography, the book he wrote with Alex Haley, was named one of the most important books of the 20th century. People around the world read it and say, "His story makes me believe that I can change my life too." His journey from a poor boy to a prisoner to a leader shows that transformation is always possible, that anger can turn into wisdom, that pain can turn into purpose, that hate can turn into love. Every year, people still gather to celebrate his birthday, May 19. They wear shirts with his face. They read his speeches out loud. They tell his story to children who are just learning about history. And somewhere in their hearts, they hear his voice. Steady, strong, alive, telling them, wake up, stand tall, know your worth. Because Malcolm X never truly left. He became a part of every person who dares to speak the truth, to fight for justice, and to believe that change is possible. As one teacher once told her students, Malcolm X was not perfect, but he was real. And real people can change the world. And maybe that is why, after all these years, his voice still echoes, not in anger, but in hope. Listening practice tips. Use a calm, emotional voice to finish the story. Pause for reflection after the last quotes. Repeat these lines for pronunciation and power. Knowledge is power. Change is possible. His voice still echoes, not in anger, but in hope. Try recording yourself reading this chapter for rhythm and fluency.
Decades passed, but the world kept changing, just as Malcolm had hoped. New voices rose in every generation. Teachers, artists, leaders, and dreamers. And many of them said the same words. Malcolm X taught me to believe in myself. In the 1990s and 2000s, young people wore shirts with his face and the letter X. To them, it meant strength, truth, and pride. Rappers, poets, and activists used his words in their art. They spoke about power, justice, and equality. The same things Malcolm had fought for. In classrooms, students watched old videos of his speeches. His deep voice filled the room. Who taught you to hate yourself? You can't separate peace from freedom, because no one can be at peace unless he has freedom. His words sounded old, but his message felt new. Every time a young person felt judged or unseen, Malcolm's story reminded them that they were not alone. In Africa, his ideas inspired leaders who were building their countries after colonization. In the Middle East, people admired his honesty. In Europe, students studied him as a symbol of courage. And in America, his face became a part of history, not just as a fighter, but as a thinker. His daughter, Atala Shabazz, often gave speeches about her father. She said, "My father believed in evolution, not of species, but of souls. He believed every person could grow, change, and become better." People listened. They nodded. They understood. But Malcolm X's life was not just about race. It was about transformation. He had once been angry and lost. Then he learned. He changed. He found peace. And he shared it with the world. That
was his true victory. Not fame, not power, but growth. Every person who studies his story learns the same truth. Change begins in the mind. If you want freedom, you must first free your mind. Chapter 10. Lessons for the Future. The story of Malcom X is more than history. It's a mirror showing us who we are and who we can become. He was a boy who lost his father, a prisoner who found his purpose, and a man who changed how millions saw themselves. His life teaches us that education, respect, and courage can rebuild any soul. Today, when students open his autobiography, they see not just the story of one man, but the story of hope after pain. They read about how books changed him in prison, how words became his freedom. He once said, "People don't realize how a man's whole life can be changed by one book." That quote still inspires readers around the world. It reminds us that learning is never wasted, even in hard times. Teachers often ask their students, "What can we learn from Malcom X?" And the answers come from every corner of the classroom. To believe in yourself, to never stop learning, to forgive and grow, to fight for what is right. Malcom X's story is not just about color, it's about character. It's about the power of the human spirit. He proved that even when the world says no, you can still rise and say yes. The future belongs to those who prepare it for today, he said, and that sentence still guides millions. In a world full of noise, Malcom's voice still feels clear. He reminds us to speak with purpose, to act with courage, and to live with truth. Sometimes when people walk through Harlem and see his murals, they stop and think. They imagine his voice echoing in the air. Wake up, respect yourself, be proud of who you are. And they smile, because they know he was right. Malcom X once asked his people to open their eyes. Now, his story keeps opening hearts all around the world. So if you ever feel small or lost or unsure of your place, remember Malcom's journey. Remember that he started with pain and ended with peace. And remember his words, words that still shine like a guiding light. You can't separate peace from freedom. Education is the passport to the future. A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. Because as long as we keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing, the voice of Malcom X will never be silent.